I'd also like to thank Esri for hosting the 2016 Business Summit. It really is a great opportunity for us all to connect with other business leaders, to share experiences, and hopefully to walk away a little smarter, a little wiser. So the topic is communicating through GIS. And I know Helen was going to confirm that there weren't any additional errors in the programming. I'm not sure whether now that I've got everybody's attention. It's an exercise in understanding. So, my name's Cliff McHenry, and I'm a director for Benderson Development. And I think to help you better understand Benderson Development, I might share a little bit of the story of our founder, Nate Benderson, who was a young boy. He grew up in the Depression in Buffalo, New York. His family, like so many at that time, lost their home following the stock market crash. And Nate, against his parents' wishes, dropped out of school. He thought he could help his family better by earning some money for the family rather than in school. He was an entrepreneur, and he identified an opportunity. You might consider him one of the early recyclers. You see, at that time in the Northeast, there were thousands of breweries, and Buffalo was one of the major markets. Well, there were companies that had bottles to sell and companies that needed bottles. And so he set out on a mission to connect with those companies and identify opportunities. So here he is, a 16-year-old boy, and he got a reputation as being the go-to guy when it came to bottles. Well, one of these brewery executives, the company was Phoenix Brewing, approached him when he was 16 and said, "I have got a deal for you, 1.8 million bottles." Can you picture this young 16-year-old standing in an executive's office trying to do a deal for 1.8 million bottles? And guess what? He didn't have any money either. So, but he was determined. The executive, though, which I can understand, said, "Here's the contract. I know you've signed the contracts in the past, but I want you to take this home and have your dad sign it." Well, he took offense to that. One, he didn't think his dad would sign it, and two, he said, "You know what? This is my company. I made this happen." So he goes home that night, sits down at the dinner table. Dad says, "I'm not signing that thing. Are you crazy?" He didn't let that stop him. He said, "Okay." He got in his car, I say his car, a car, and canvassed the market in Buffalo. And then he didn't stop there. He went on to Rochester, traveled to Syracuse, and at the end of that journey, he found buyers for nearly all the bottles. He returned to that executive and said, "Here's your contract. It's only signed by me, but I've got your bottles sold." And with that, he solidified his position as a businessman in Buffalo. And he used that reputation of being a determined young entrepreneur and invested in real estate. He started with one property. And today, the Buffalo market, we've got about 200 properties and nearly 10 million square feet. Nationwide, Benderson Development is one of the largest privately held real estate companies in the country. So about 700 properties, 38 states, about 40 million square feet. And related to Benderson Development are a couple of other companies. Buffalo Lodging, which is a group of about 40 limited service hotels that operate primarily under the Hilton and Marriott flags. And then some of you from the Chicago area or upstate New York area might be familiar with Delta Sonic, which is a group of service stations that have car washes, detail shops, lube shop, convenience store, restaurants. So those are some of the related businesses. But Benderson Development, our primary focus is retail anchored shopping centers, so grocery, large retailers. And our approach to business is pretty simple. We'll buy properties, we'll renovate them, we'll lease them, and we maintain them, or we'll build new. And a lot of it just depends on the finances of it. Which makes more sense? Does it make more sense to try to acquire or to try to build new? But what I find interesting or maybe unique about us is that a lot of the properties that were developed or purchased more than 50 years ago are still in the portfolio today. So we take a pretty long-term view of real estate. So a little about myself. As I mentioned, I serve as a director for Benderson Development, and I'm involved in our commercial development, our construction, our property management, some of our IT strategic direction. Went to West Virginia University, business administration degree, and married, just celebrated 25th anniversary, so I've got a very patient and understanding wife. Have 2 wonderful kids. Special disclaimer here, and I intentionally made that a little small, but I have to say I don't have a GIS degree, and I don't have equivalent GIS experience, so I am the dumbest guy in the room here. I'm just going to go ahead and make that admission right now. But that said, and I know we just came back from lunch, but I'm already thinking about dinner. And the place I'm thinking about is a place not too far from the convention center. If you were to go over the railroad tracks, and it's about 3 blocks or so down, I think it's on the right-hand side. They serve a great variety of tapas and wonderful atmosphere. I see some heads nodding. There may be a few of you who know what I'm talking about. And if I mention the name Cafe Sevilla, maybe a few more people are familiar with this. Okay, so did this guy come to San Diego just to tell us about a restaurant and where he's planning on eating tonight? No. My goal with that story was try to connect with each of you, to get everybody on the same page, because through understanding, we can make better decisions. But that example of communication, I didn't have everybody on the same page. That type of communication happens in our businesses daily. So let's think about a leasing meeting. I'll pick on the leasing agents for a minute here. Sitting around a room, leasing agent has a deal. So I'm going to lease that space, the one down towards the right end of the center. Everybody's kind of scratching their heads. Oh, that one? No, not that one. The one that's 2 down from there. That's the one I'm talking about. So you got a room full of people scratching their heads trying to understand. You got a room full of people that are in the dark. They don't have any idea what's trying to be communicated. And when people don't understand, what happens is they have problems. Whether it costs you time, costs you money, delays decision making, or results in poor decisions. So what if we simply try to use the GIS platform to improve communications in our company? Sounds simple enough. It might actually work. I believe there is power in connecting data and documents and locations. And I think one of our earlier speakers today said, data by itself has limited value. But when you connect it to location, when you integrate documents, you create a synergy there. That power, the benefit of GIS. So we started out on our journey, and again, I'll mention I'm not a GIS guy, and I involved another non-GIS guy. I don't know what I was thinking, but. So this might be one of our typical centers, and I said, what if we simply look at our information in 4 buckets? That first bucket is the property, second bucket might be a building, third bucket might be a unit, or that's going to be something that's not occupied, and a fourth might be a tenant. And in doing that, it sounds simple enough, we could have all of the answers that we needed if we just established those buckets, right? Simple enough. Let's just geocode the addresses and call it a day, right? Well, maybe not such a good idea. Maybe we better give this a little more thought. We've all seen these stories. Somebody relied on an address and something didn't go quite as planned. We're not going to make that mistake. So how can we improve or increase the accuracy of the information that we're trying to communicate? How can we make it to where there aren't any questions? Said, well, here's the same center. I think we have some CAD drawings for this. And so the guy that I got involved, a guy by the name of Tom Young, great guy, has strong CAD experience, but again, a non-GIS guy. I said, I think we can take our CAD drawings and somehow get them onto this aerial image, and with that, we might be able to more accurately pinpoint some locations within our centers. So that wasn't going to happen. That was a recipe for disaster. So what did we do? We reached out to somebody who knew what they were doing, somebody who had been there and had done that. Company data story, and I'll mention Matt Felton. He is a guy who has real estate experience and GIS experience and a bit of patience. And one of his developers that he works with, Josh, again, just a great guy. They helped us take our vision and turn it into a reality. So what we're looking at here is simple CAD overlay, and all I'm showing at this point are the buildings, the units, and the tenants. There's a parking layer on there, and there are some additional layers, but what we tried to do was to merely take our CAD drawings and put them on the map. Why? Well, again, that idea that we will have increased accuracy for our data. So Matt, using the technology, said, you know what? You've got these locations on here. What if we identify the centroid of each of those spaces, and we've got a point that we can record? And so the manual way to do that would be to take your mouse and click on that spot and record that information. But he said, I think we can do this with the push of a button. And he did. And we took that data and we said, okay, now we've got a latitude, longitude for each of these points. This is great. Uh-oh. Anybody familiar with the legacy system? That's what I'm picturing there in the bottom, or what I'm trying to describe to you. Number one, it was an obstacle in the road. It wasn't going anywhere very quickly, and it wasn't an option to blow it up and start from scratch. So we've got this legacy system that we're trying to somehow get those latitude, longitudes into, because with that, I think we have the key that might unlock all of that data. Because see, this legacy system, and I'm no exaggeration, it is the green screen. It served us well for decades, but it was developed before the term user interface was coined. It's non-existent. So, but with that simple latitude, longitude tied to our data, yes, we unlocked all of the information from our legacy system, and we're able to push it to the map. This wouldn't have been possible 5 years ago, I don't think, with the Esri system, but the developments that they've made have enabled that seamless integration, or some almost seamless integration between Excel spreadsheets, CSV files, and a map. So what are we looking at in this picture? We're looking at all of the information relative to units, leases, et cetera, pushed to a map. And so what does this do? How does this help our communication? Well, it becomes the go-to source. You know, a lot of businesses focus on the analytical benefits of the GIS system, and that's the true power. But I'm here to dumb things down, all right? How can we get the biggest fan base? What if we built a system that merely delivers the answers to those questions that people have? Jillian Elders from Walgreens stated last year at the Business Summit, if you identify those frequently asked questions and develop answers for them, you will create fans. And I couldn't agree more. So here's a center that we have down in University Park, Florida. And you get simple questions. When does the BJ's lease expire? You click on the button and it's going to tell you when the lease expires. What's the square footage of the available unit? What's the overall occupancy of that center? Who's responsible for roof maintenance at the Total Wine? These are the questions that we answer by simply pushing the data that we have on file to that point. So that really streamlines the user interface. And it doesn't matter whether these questions are being asked in the field or in the office. So Esri ArcGIS Online, it's perfect. Whether it's an iPad or an iPhone, gives you the ability to access that same data without having to VPN in and do a bunch of calculations. We have made it to where a property manager visits a site. What's he have to do? He opens the app and says the Where Am I button, and he's got all of the information about CAMs, common area maintenance. Big in real estate because it determines who's responsible for what, whether it's the tenant, whether it's the landlord. So we're providing those answers. Leasing agents, same opportunities there. So the communication has been great. And I touched a little bit on that it hasn't been focused on analytics. But here's a 5-minute challenge. And this was during the development stages of the exercise. It was, we're sitting around this windowless office in Buffalo, and everybody thinks of Buffalo, New York, and it has a certain reputation for snow and not so nice weather during those 9 months of the year. But it was living up to that reputation this evening. So nobody was in a big hurry to leave the office. So we're sitting around this windowless conference room, and Matt Felton's in the room, and he's talking to us. He said, okay, I'm on board with your plan here, Cliff, to get all this data to the map, but let me show you what you can do with that. I said, okay, sounds fine. I said, so why don't I just give you a quick map here? I'm going to spin something up. I think that's a phrase he likes to use regularly. I'm going to spin this up, and I'm going to show you your portfolio of, 4,000 leases or something like that, and some additional spaces that you've got available. And I'll go ahead and display the available space, currently available one way, and I'll give you your leases. What do you want? You want 18-month expiration? You want 24 months? Okay, 24 months. No problem. Okay, Matt. He's feeling pretty confident here, and we're looking at him saying, okay, how can we make this a little tougher on him? Can you do this in less than 5 minutes? I think so. So literally we got out the iPhone and said, okay, let me see what you got. And 3.5, 4 minutes later, he had a map generated for us with our internal data that reflected available space, currently available, what was going to come available in the next 24 months, and it was represented by square footage and colors and all of this stuff. And it was amazing. It was truly amazing. And all of that data, all of that information was unlocked by simply pushing our data to the map. With that, we had a report that we could act on. We can direct our leasing agents. We can help make better business decisions. So he helped us understand some of the true capacities and capabilities of the system. And so the question that I asked you, because so many of these presentations are so incredible when we focus on the analytics and the capabilities, it is truly amazing. I'm inspired by all of them. The simple question that I asked you is, what opportunities do you have to push your data to a map that would help improve the communication in your company? I think what I'm talking about applies not just to real estate, but to all aspects of all business. Communication is fundamental. The systems that Esri has developed, they help make it possible. And I'd like to finish by saying, there are a lot of people in this room and in this industry that have been doing this for a long time. And I want to say thanks to each one of you, because you have conquered the bigger challenges. You've developed the systems to the point that non-GIS guys like me can do something with it and make it happen. And I think that's another important point to make is you don't have to be a GIS pro to implement a system that can provide benefit to your company. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Cliff. Stay here a second. So your first set of comments really caught my attention about communication. Mm-hmm. We all deal with challenges in communication in our businesses and with our customers, and you tell me about communication issues we have. From a business standpoint, what did this capability change about your business in terms of communication and benefit?
Certainly. We talk a little bit about some of the crisis situations and how they require you to react and respond. And that certainly is a great test of communication. And so when you think about the Esri system, prior to that, we may have had to go to 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different sources or systems or silos, stacks of information. Mm-hmm. You could get your answer, but it may take a day and a half. It may be an exercise where you're not going to get that answer while you're out in the field. You'll get it when you get back to the office, right? And you get back to the office, well, guess what? When you get back to the office, there's a lot of other things that are waiting for you. And right. So maybe that answer just gets delayed, and that's when I talk about the delayed decision making.
Right.
So it significantly streamlines not just the access to the information, but the access to the answers that you need to make decisions that'll help the business.
Awesome. That's great. Congratulations.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.